how many countries in the world hate the United States because we have chosen Israel as an ally over however many dozens of countries despise us for our role in that.
Jerusalem is a different city, though. There's a couple billion people worldwide that believe in this guy named Jesus, and they don't think he was just a carpenter. Do you think the world's a better place without Israel existing?
I'm not gonna lie, this got uncomfortable fast. You can actually see the moment where Patrick pauses and really listens. This wasn't just a normal political disagreement. This was a deeper conversation about foreign policy, alliances, and what America first actually means. And regardless of where you stand on this issue, you can't deny it takes a lot to say something like that on a platform this big.
Such as what? Like, what does he need to do?
I think his support for Israel is one thing in particular, and perhaps his favor of those Zionist politics is one of the biggest things that are perhaps holding Trump back from a true America First policy.
So you're not for him supporting the Zionists and Israel. You don't like that.
I am not in favor of it.
Why are you uncomfortable with that?
I believe not only is the wars in the Middle East, often involving Israel, either directly or indirectly, are a huge drain of resources, of diplomatic credibility. I mean, how many countries in the world hate the United States because we have chosen Israel as an ally over however many dozens of countries despise us for our role in that. But it is a drain of blood. It's a drain of resources. It's a drain of money. It's a drain of diplomatic credibility. And culturally, Americans have very little in common with, I think, a lot of the people that live in Israel. Perhaps not much more than we would have in common with the people who live in other countries.
What makes this interesting isn't just the topic, it's the framing. The guest isn't arguing emotionally. He's arguing from a strategic standpoint. He's basically saying, should the U.S. be involved at this level at all? And you can tell Patrick is trying to clarify, not attack, but really understand the foundation of that belief. That's where the tension starts building.
Unpack that. What do you mean by that? The word we disagree with a lot of people in Israel.
Americans are not culturally similar to Israelis any more than we would be culturally similar to Iranians, especially, in the country where you grew up. I know Iran has changed very drastically, but I don't think we have a whole lot. There's no reason that Israel needs to be this ally, which we are willing to sacrifice our place on the global stage for, which we're willing to wage trillion-dollar wars to destabilize their neighbors. There's no reason except for the fact that there's so many Zionists in the American government, in lobbying groups like AIPAC, and they brag about their influence. They brag about being able to buy politicians. And you look up politicians that say pro-Israel things, that they defend Israel invading these cities in Gaza, and you look at how much money they've received from AIPAC and groups like that, and it's a lot. But I don't think we should support these other groups in the Middle East. I think the United States should be hands off the Middle East, because I think a lot of these countries, a lot of these groups were having conflicts and border conflicts and ethnic conflicts and religious conflicts long before the United States ever showed up, and they'll be having them after we leave.
Do you think the world's a better place without Israel existing?
I don't know. I think the existence of Israel is something that needs to be decided by the Middle East and not the United States.
So let's just say I'm Assyrian. Okay.
Very good.
And as most of the Assyrian land was today's Iraq. Okay. And a lot of the places, historical places of Assyrians, Alamas and some of these places that we had, they've been destroyed.
Yes.
By people in Iraq. Absolutely destroying well-known churches, well-known buildings to get rid of the history.
I'm against historical erasure.
Okay. But also, if you say you're against it, but what does that really mean? Because, some people may say, well, the reason why Israel is necessary, because that's Jerusalem. So what if we let it loose and you let the Middle East handle it and they go in and they destroy the city? How do you prevent that from happening?
I wouldn't be in favor of cities being destroyed generally.
Well, you won't be able to control that because that's happened.
Does the United States need to guarantee every city in the world?
Jerusalem is a different city, though. There's a couple billion people worldwide that believe in this guy named Jesus, and they don't think he was just a carpenter. They think he was a.
I understand.
This is where the conversation shifts from politics to something much bigger: culture, history, religion, identity. When Jerusalem gets brought up, it's no longer just about foreign aid or military policy. It becomes symbolic. And that's why this moment matters. Because now they're not just debating policy, they're debating responsibility.
Right. So to them, they're they would like to keep that place.
When you spoke with Vivek Ramaswamy,
Right.
he was talking about how I don't believe he thinks that the Israel should be in its place of preeminence that that it is right now. But he was talking about how Israel had all the money and all the guns that frankly they needed to defend their own borders. But what they lacked most was diplomatic credibility. And that was not being used by them because I think there's a lot of people in Israel who are placing the conflict and their war goals over their diplomatic credibility on the world stage. And without the United States propping them up diplomatically, perhaps a lot of those politicians in Israel would have to make a lot of very difficult decisions, which would ultimately bring them back into a semblance, we can hope, of harmony. But that's a decision that has to be made by them.
But that's a different conversation, though.
Sure.
Those are two separate things we're talking about. I think.
I don't think that America exists to assure these places.
You don't think America exists to ensure these places. So,
Yes.
Got it. So for you, whether they destroy Jerusalem or not, that's not in your top 100 list that matter to you.
I would say that I would think it would be a very bad thing. However,
You wouldn't lose sleep over it, though.
the United States, if we're talking about what we would do, I'm not in any position to write policy or dictate foreign policy, right? But the United States could act not as a arms dealer, but it could act in a more assertive tone as a peace broker. And I think that could avoid the type of cataclysmic scenario you're talking about.
What prompted you to be so uncomfortable or maybe against Israel's existence or, the fact that it's like, I think Trump being too supportive of that, I'm not with that. What prompted you at this age, 25 years old, to be so against that?
It's not so much Israel in the Middle East as much as it is Israel in the United States. I think the amount of people of Jewish faith and ancestry, and specifically of Zionist political leanings, is they're overrepresented in positions of power in the United States today. And is that me saying that every single one of them is morally bad and guilty of some particular wrongdoing? No, absolutely not. But I think it is not wrong to say that these people, especially Zionists, people with these lobbying groups, are so vastly overrepresented in comparison to the amount of Jews in the Middle East or in the United States or anywhere that we need to ask some serious questions as a country as to whether or not the influence of these, political careerists is in the best or the negative interests of the United States. And if you ask me, I would say no.
Okay, this next part is where things really escalate. When the conversation turns toward influence inside the United States itself, you can feel the temperature in the room change. And this is where I want to slow this down for a second, not to take sides, but to think critically. There's a difference between criticizing foreign policy and making broader claims about representation or influence inside government. Those are two very different conversations, and they require a lot of precision. One thing I respect about Patrick here is that he doesn't shut the guest down. He keeps asking questions. He keeps probing. He's trying to understand where the belief is coming from. At the same time, when discussions move into topics about specific groups being overrepresented or having disproportionate influence, that's where things can get complicated quickly. Those claims require serious evidence and careful framing. Otherwise, they risk becoming generalizations. What I think is really happening in this clip isn't just about one country or one alliance. It's about a larger debate that's happening in America right now. Should the U.S. act as a global protector, or should it scale back and focus inward? Where's the line between strategic alliance and over-involvement, and who ultimately decides what's in the country's best interest? That's the core tension here. And honestly, these are difficult conversations. They're emotional, they're layered with history, they're layered with faith, they're layered with national identity. But if you strip away the heat, what you're left with is a debate about foreign policy priorities. That's it. And whether you agree with the guest or strongly disagree, moments like this are important because they show how divided people are on America's role in the world. Now here's my question to you. Do you think the U.S. should maintain strong global alliances no matter the cost? Or do you think it's time to fundamentally rethink how involved America is overseas?